The first thing that hit me wasn't the noise, but the smell. That specific, acrid scent of institutional smoke, the kind they use in fire drills that smells vaguely like burnt plastic and shattered expectations. Then came the noise, a shrill, rhythmic shriek that drilled directly into my pre-caffeinated brain. Is that the "we are all gonna die" alarm, or the "somebody burnt popcorn in the teacher's lounge" alarm? My 7-year-old daughter, Lily, asked, her voice impressively calm as she clutched her unicorn-themed backpack. "It's Friday, so it's the scheduled 'let's all practice not dying' alarm," I said, steering her toward the throng of parents gathering on the lawn of Northwood Elementary. "See? Very orderly." And it was. Lines of kids, from the tiny kindergartners holding hands in a wobbly chain to the too cool for this nonsense 5th graders, filed out of the brick building under the watchful eyes of their teachers. It was a well-oiled machine of elementary school emergency preparedness. We, the parental spectators, stood at a respectful distance, sipping our travel mugs and making small talk. It was all very civilized, very suburban. Until it wasn't. I saw Mrs. Davison, Lily's 2nd grade teacher, lead her class toward the north perimeter fence. This was their designated muster point, right by the emergency exit gate, a simple chain-link affair that opened onto a grassy path leading safely away from the school, out onto the street. It was the fastest, most direct route out for half the school. Mrs. Davison reached the gate. She pushed. Nothing. She pushed again, her shoulder bumping against the metal. It didn't budge. A frown creased her normally cheerful face. She waved over another teacher, Mr. Gable, a gym teacher built like a friendly refrigerator. He put his considerable weight into it. The gate rattled, but held firm. A murmur went through the crowd of parents. My friend Dave, who had materialized beside me holding a coffee that was 80% whipped cream, nudged me. "Uh-oh, looks like a classic case of gate-related performance anxiety." I wasn't listening. My project manager brain, the part of me that spends 40 hours a week identifying and mitigating risks in software development, was suddenly flashing red alert signs. A blocked emergency exit isn't a glitch. It's a critical failure. I walked closer, my easy Friday morning mood evaporating like a puddle in the August sun. And that's when I saw them. Wedged against the outside of the gate, preventing it from swinging open, were 3 of the most hideous, ostentatiously large concrete planters I had ever seen. They were bulbous, faux Tuscan monstrosities, the kind of things people with more money than taste buy to feel European. Specifically, they were the exact planters the Oak Reserve Homeowners Association had installed at our neighborhood entrance last spring. They had to weigh 1/4 of a ton each. And sitting on top of the middle one, held down by a perfectly smooth gray river stone, was a piece of paper. From 20 feet away, I couldn't read it, but I didn't have to. I could feel its aura. It was laminated. "No," I whispered. "No what?" Dave asked, now beside me. "She didn't—" Dave followed my gaze to the planters, then to the laminated note. A slow grin spread across his face. Oh my God, she did. She actually did it. The "she" in question was Brenda Dixon, President for Life of the Oak Reserve HOA, and the undisputed queen of weaponized pettiness. The woman who saw our idyllic suburban neighborhood not as a community, but as her own personal fiefdom, to be ruled by the iron fist of the bylaws and covenants, while Principal Thompson ran over, looking like a man who just saw a ghost, and the teachers tried to reroute 100 confused children. A strange calm washed over me. The background noise of the alarm and the chatter faded away. This was no longer a school issue. This was no longer a neighborhood squabble. Brenda Dixon had taken a problem, a stupid, aesthetic-based, entirely fictional problem she had invented, and turned it into a logistical nightmare. She had created a workflow blockage of the most critical kind. And if there's one thing I, Alex Miller, professional untangler of corporate messes, cannot abide, it's a poorly executed, utterly illogical, and dangerously stupid workflow blockage. My daughter's safety was behind that blocked gate. I looked at the chaos, at the frantic principal, at the immovable planters. I took a deep breath. Okay, Brenda, you want to make this a project? Let's make this a project. But to truly appreciate the beautiful, unhinged audacity of those planters, you have to understand that this wasn't a sudden act of madness. Oh no. This was the grand finale of a week-long crescendo of crazy. It all started, as so many modern tragedies do, with an email. It had arrived on Monday morning, nestled in my inbox between a meeting reminder and a 20% off coupon for a pizza place I'd never visit. The subject line was a masterpiece of corporate passive aggression. Urgent, regarding Bylaw 14. C. Fencing and Boundary Aesthetics. The sender, of course, was Brenda.Dixon.HOA President at oakreserve.net. I sighed and took a sip of my coffee. Engaging with a Brenda email was like agreeing to read the terms and conditions for the entire internet. It was dense, full of self-important jargon, and you always felt like you were signing away a piece of your soul. I opened it. To concerned residents of Oak Reserve, Mr. Thompson, Principal, Northwood Elementary. From Brenda Dixon, HOA President. Subject, urgent, regarding Bylaw 14. C. Fencing and Boundary Aesthetics. Dear neighbors and esteemed community partners, it has come to my attention, through rigorous and ongoing community assessment, that a significant aesthetic and compliance issue persists on the north boundary of the Northwood Elementary property, which directly abuts our cherished Oak Reserve community. I am referring, of course, to the industrial-grade chain-link emergency egress point. While the HOA appreciates the school's commitment to rudimentary safety protocols, the current state of this gate is in direct conflict with the spirit, if not the precise letter, of Bylaw 14.c, which governs harmonious boundary transitions. The gate's metallic finish is stark, its functionality purely utilitarian, and its very presence invites a level of transitional foot traffic that could compromise the integrity of the meticulously cultivated fescue blend in the adjacent common area. Furthermore, the potential for unscheduled use of this egress point represents a significant deviation from the predictable patterns that ensure our community remains a sanctuary of peace and high property values. I trust that the school administration will want to proactively address this matter. I would suggest we form a subcommittee to re-evaluate the school's emergency preparedness protocols to be more in line with our established community aesthetic standards. Thank you for your immediate attention to this pressing issue. Sincerely, Brenda Dixon, President, Oak Reserve HOA. Preserving perfection, protecting property values. I read it twice, just to be sure I hadn't suffered a minor stroke. Rudimentary safety protocols? Harmonious boundary transitions? She was talking about a fire exit. A hole in a fence designed to let children escape a burning building. She wanted to form a subcommittee. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, 1,000 sarcastic replies battling for supremacy. Brenda, I'm concerned my front door's utilitarian functionality is compromising the fescue. Should I brick it up and start using the chimney? Instead, I did what any sane person would do. I dragged the email into my junk folder, not because it was spam, but because the folder's name felt emotionally appropriate. I took another sip of coffee and went back to my actual job, dismissing it as the opening salvo in another one of Brenda's pointless crusades. Last fall, it was a 3-week war over the acceptable shades of off-white for garage doors. The summer before, a protracted and bloody campaign against unauthorized wind chimes. A rusty gate was right in her wheelhouse. Later that day, standing on the blacktop waiting for the dismissal bell, I saw the first sign that this might be different. Dave Chen, my closest friend in this suburban jungle, and Lily's friend's dad, ambled over. Dave was a freelance graphic designer, which meant he had a finely tuned appreciation for visual absurdity. "Did you see the manifesto from Queen Brenda this morning?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "I think she's trying to get the fire marshal to approve an escape route through a topiary garden shaped like a leaping dolphin." "I saw it," I said. "I believe the term she used was harmonious boundary transition." "That's what she called it when she told me my daughter's pink bicycle violated the neighborhood's color palette," Dave said grimly. "She cornered me at the mailbox. Spent 10 minutes talking about the tonal inconsistency of the gate's paint color. Said it lacked intentionality. The gate's purpose is its intention," I countered. "To not be on fire." "You're using logic, Alex. That's a rookie mistake when dealing with Brenda." As we spoke, my eyes drifted across the playground. And there she was, Brenda herself. Clad in a powder blue tracksuit that perfectly matched her prize-winning hydrangeas, she stood near the offending gate, holding a clipboard. Her lips were pursed into a thin line of disapproval as she stared at the chain link, occasionally scribbling a note. She looked like a health inspector who'd just found a rat in the soup. A small, unpleasant prickle of dread traced a line down my spine. This was more than just an email. This was field work. "You know," I said to Dave, "for someone so concerned with aesthetics, she spends a lot of time staring at the ugliest things in the neighborhood." "Maybe she's trying to intimidate it into becoming a wrought iron masterpiece through sheer force of will," he mused. We both laughed, but the image of her standing there, clipboard in hand, stuck with me. This wasn't just another passive-aggressive email. This was a reconnaissance mission. 2 days later, the follow-up attack landed. The subject line had escalated accordingly. Final notice: non-compliance with Oak Reserve aesthetic mandates. She'd CC'd the school board this time. A classic power play. Dear all, following my previous correspondence, to which the response has been regrettably inadequate, I must now insist on immediate action regarding the non-compliant north boundary egress point. My on-site inspection has revealed further violations, including minor rust patches, a clear violation of Bylaw 22A regarding property upkeep, and the presence of common weeds at the fence's base, a transgression against the native flora-only landscaping addendum. These issues compound the primary problem. The gate represents a significant liability magnet and a demonstrable detriment to our community's carefully curated property values. I have attached photographic evidence for your review. The attachments were 3 low-resolution photos of the gate, with angry red circles and arrows drawn on them in what looked like Microsoft Paint, pointing out a flake of rust the size of my pinky nail and a dandelion. The continued inaction by Northwood Elementary's administration is deeply concerning. If the school is unwilling to take its community responsibilities seriously, the HOA will be forced to take proactive measures to protect the integrity of our neighborhood and mitigate this ongoing aesthetic and financial threat. Please consider this your final notice. Sincerely, Brenda Dixon, President, Oak Reserve HOA. Principal Thompson's reply appeared almost instantly, a digital squeak of terror. Brenda, I must insist that this is a matter for the school district and the fire marshal, who have both approved the gate. Please cease this line of communication. Brenda's response was even faster. Duly noted, the HOA will proceed accordingly. A cold knot formed in my stomach. The corporate jargon, the thinly veiled threats. It was also familiar. It was exactly how multi-billion-dollar companies talked before a hostile takeover. I forwarded the entire chain to Dave. I'm promoting her from neighborhood nuisance to potential supervillain. She's talking about the gate like it's an insider trading scheme. Dave replied a minute later. Dude, she's not okay. Also, Liability Magnet is my new band name. The shift from amusement to genuine annoyance was complete. This woman wasn't just a quirky neighbor. She was a bully, cloaking her power trip in the language of bylaws and property values. But it was still just emails, just words. That evening, as I was attempting to convince Lily that fish sticks were, in fact, a nutritionally complete meal, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but a strange instinct made me answer. Hello? Mr. Miller, Alex, this is Principal Thompson. I am so sorry to bother you at home. His voice was thin and reedy, stretched taut with anxiety. No problem, Mr. Thompson. Everything okay? I asked, flipping a fish stick with a fork. Well, no, not really. It's about Mrs. Dixon. Join the club, I said, unable to help myself. We've got jackets, but the bylaws say they have to be beige. What's up? There was a nervous chuckle on the other end. She came to the school today, after dismissal. Let me guess, clipboard? A tape measure, he corrected, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. She was measuring the distance from the emergency gate to her prize-winning hydrangeas. She said she was assessing the potential blast radius. I stopped, fork in midair. The blast radius? Of what? I quote, the kinetic impact of a potential stampede. I had to put the phone down for a second and rub my eyes. A stampede of 7-year-olds. A species whose primary mode of locomotion is a sort of uncoordinated, zigzagging shuffle. Mr. Thompson, I said, putting the phone back to my ear. Has she ever actually watched children run? It's less stampede, more uncoordinated flailing in a vague forward direction. The only thing in danger is their own ankles. I know that, Alex, you know that. But she has this look in her eye. The fire drill is scheduled for Friday morning. I'm just worried she's going to do something rash. Rash like another strongly worded email? Or rash like, I don't know, building a moat? I don't know, he squeaked. And that's what worries me. I hung up the phone a few minutes later, the sizzle of the fish sticks drowned out by a buzzing in my own head. I looked over at Lily, who was meticulously drawing a rainbow-colored cat at the kitchen table, completely oblivious. The problem wasn't abstract anymore. It wasn't about bylaws or fescue or property values. It was about her safety, her clear, unobstructed path away from a fire. Brenda had made a critical error. She had taken her petty aesthetic crusade and aimed it squarely at my daughter's well-being. She had, in my own professional parlance, escalated a low-priority issue into a show-stopping, mission-critical bug. Okay, fine, I muttered to the empty kitchen. She's finally made it a logistical problem. And if there's one thing I know, it's logistics. Which brings us back to Friday morning. The fire alarm, the blocked gate, the laminated note sitting there like a tiny, smug tombstone marking the grave of common sense. Chaos was beginning to bubble. The initial calm of the drill was fracturing. Kids were getting restless. Teachers were starting to look genuinely stressed. Principal Thompson was now pacing back and forth, phone pressed to his ear, his face the color of spoiled milk. He looked like he was trying to simultaneously call the fire department, the school board, and his therapist. You have got to be kidding me, Dave said, his voice a mixture of horror and delight. This is next level. This is performance art. It's a federal offense, I corrected, my voice flat. My brain was already kicking into overdrive, shedding the skin of concerned parent and donning the full armor of project manager on a deadline. A teacher, Mrs. Davison, her face pale, jogged over to the principal. It won't open. It's blocked. What do we do? Just Just reroute them around the front, Thompson stammered. Keep everyone calm. I stared at the planters. 3 of them. Concrete and packed earth. At least 500 pounds apiece. Placed with strategic precision, and the laminated note. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it. Brenda didn't just block an emergency exit. She did it with the smug, bureaucratic cheerfulness of a corporate memo announcing department-wide layoffs. The woman was an artist. Okay, I said, turning to Dave. My voice was different now. Sharper, devoid of humor. This is now a project. Dave blinked. A project? Project name, Operation Unstupid the Gate. You're my stakeholder liaison. My what? Alex, I was just going to go get a donut. No time for donuts, I said, pulling out my phone. My fingers flew across the screen. Your job is to run interference. Go to Thompson, keep him calm. Tell him a citizens' task force is handling it. Tell him we have a contingency plan. Do we have a contingency plan? Dave asked, his eyes wide. I am the contingency plan, I said without looking up from my screen. The world of project management is built on one simple principle. You don't have to know how to do everything, you just have to know who to call. My teams weren't guys in black uniforms rappelling from helicopters. They were just my network, and I was lighting it up. First, a text to Miguel Garcia. I'd hired Miguel's landscaping company last year to build a retaining wall. He was fast, no nonsense, and possessed a deep, spiritual understanding of heavy objects. 2, Miguel Garcia, landscaping. Emergency. Suburban nonsense. Level 10. Need you and 2 guys at Northwood Elementary Northgate. Bring crowbars and a heavy-duty flatbed dolly. We'll pay double your emergency rate. Yes, it's that stupid. His reply came back in 15 seconds. On my way. Next, the dad signal. A group chat I was in with a few other school dads. It was mostly used for organizing poker nights and complaining about youth soccer coaches. 2, the dad signal. Code red at the school. Brenda went nuclear, Northgate, need muscle and moral support. Mostly muscle. Replies flooded in. Be right there. Fired up the Bat minivan. Brenda again, I'll bring gloves. Finally, the official channel. I dialed the town's non-emergency police line. My voice was calm, level, and packed with facts. Yes, hello. I'd like to report a deliberate and malicious obstruction of a marked fire exit at Northwood Elementary School on Oak Street. The exit is currently blocked by several large, heavy objects. A pause. Yes, I have a pretty good idea who did it. The evidence includes a laminated note. I could almost hear the dispatcher sigh on the other end. No, I'm not surprised either. Please send a unit to take a report. Thank you. I put my phone back in my pocket. The whole sequence, assessment, delegation, and official notification, had taken maybe 3 minutes. The fire alarm was still blaring. Dave stared at me. Who even are you right now? I'm a guy who knows how to escalate an issue to the proper channels, I said. People think project management is about Gantt charts and synergy meetings. It's not. It's about knowing who to call to move a 500-pound planter 5 minutes before everything goes to hell. And knowing to text, not call, because nobody answers their phone anymore. A low rumble cut through the air. A large, slightly muddy Ford F-250 with Garcia's go-to landscaping stenciled on the side came barreling down the street and screeched to a halt by the curb. The cavalry had arrived. Miguel Garcia hopped out of the driver's seat. He was a compact, powerful man with a permanent tan and a look on his face that said he'd seen it all. He took in the scene. The planters, the panicked principal, the crowd of parents. And then he looked at me and started to laugh. A deep, genuine belly laugh. Madre de Dios, he said, shaking his head as he walked over. You said it was stupid, Alex. You undersold it. This is a masterpiece of passive aggression. It's art. It's a fire hazard, Miguel. I said, a hint of a smile finally touching my lips. Can you move them? Can I move them? He scoffed, gesturing to the two guys hopping out of his truck, both of whom looked like they could arm wrestle a bear and win. For double the rate, I can move them into her living room. Where do you want them? For now, just get them clear of the gate. We'll find a permanent home for them later. I'm thinking somewhere symbolic. Miguel grinned. I like symbolic. His crew got to work with an efficiency that was beautiful to behold. They slid a heavy-duty flatbed dolly under the edge of the first planter. With a coordinated heave and the screech of metal on concrete, they tilted it back. The sound was loud, grating, and deeply, deeply satisfying. It was the sound of Brenda's plan falling apart. Just as they got the first planter rolling, a police cruiser pulled up behind Miguel's truck. The door opened, and a tall, weary-looking officer emerged. The name tag on his uniform read, Miller. Great. Now there were two of us. He strolled over, his expression one of profound exhaustion, as if he'd been personally dreading this exact call all morning. He saw the planters, saw me giving Miguel a thumbs up, saw the half-dozen other dads who had shown up from my text, and were now standing around offering unhelpful advice, like a Greek chorus of suburban incompetence. He let out a long, slow sigh. Let me guess, he said, his voice gravelly. Dixon. The laminated note was the first clue, I said, pointing. It's her signature. We have a file on her, Officer Miller said, not taking his eyes off the planters. It's mostly about recycling bins being left out 12 hours too long and complaints about the color of holiday decorations. This is a bit of an escalation. She's branching out, I said. Decided to pivot from aesthetic enforcement to endangering children. All right. He finally looked at me, then at Miguel's crew, who were now wrestling with the second planter. Technically, this is a crime scene, and those are evidence. Technically, I countered. This is an active fire drill, and that's a blocked exit. We're mitigating an ongoing public safety threat. You can have the evidence as soon as it's no longer a threat. Officer Miller actually cracked a tiny, almost imperceptible smile. Fair enough. I need to go have a chat with her. Try not to, move the evidence too far. He gestured at the planters. No promises, I called after him as he started walking toward Brenda's pristine, beige-colored house. Right now, they're a threat to my property value. He didn't turn around, but I saw his shoulders shake a little. By the time he was knocking on Brenda's door, Miguel's team had moved the third and final planter. One of the dads, a burly guy named Tom, whose kid was in Lily's class, helped them give the gate a mighty shove. With a screech of protesting metal, it swung wide open. A small, spontaneous cheer went up from the parents. The fire alarm, as if on cue, finally fell silent. Total time elapsed from my first text to the gate being open. 12 minutes. Principal Thompson, his face now a normal human color again, rushed over. Alex, my goodness, how did you... Who are these men? I outsourced, I said, clapping Miguel on the shoulder. It's the American way. Dave, who had been dutifully calming the principal, chimed in. He made a few phone calls and then just stared at his phone like he was trying to launch a satellite. It was honestly a little intense. I turned to Miguel. Send me the invoice. Be sure to add a suburban warfare surcharge. Miguel grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. Already did. I looked across the lawn. The teachers were praising the kids for their patience. Lily caught my eye and gave me a huge, beaming smile and a thumbs up. The immediate problem was solved. The gate was open. The route was secure. But as I watched Officer Miller escort a gesticulating, irate-looking Brenda out of her front door, I knew this was far from over. You don't poke the bear, or in this case, the rabid, bylaws-obsessed badger, and expect it to just go back to sleep. This was just the opening battle. The war for Northwood Elementary's right to not be a death trap had just begun. Brenda's front lawn became the stage for the next act of our suburban drama. Officer Miller stood with his notepad, maintaining a stoic, professional calm, while Brenda, still in her powder blue tracksuit and holding a small gardening trowel like a scepter, gave her command performance. We, myself, Dave, and a still-shaken Principal Thompson, stood on the sidewalk, a safe but audible distance away. Her voice carried on the morning air, a shrill symphony of indignation and twisted logic. A complete misunderstanding. It was a temporary beautification project, as the note clearly stated, she insisted, waving the trowel for emphasis. Those planters were delivered to the wrong address, and I was merely storing them there until the landscaping company could be contacted. This is harassment. I'm the victim here. Ma'am, Officer Miller said, his voice a low rumble of patience. You stored them in a way that perfectly blocked a marked emergency exit during a scheduled fire drill. Coincidence, she shrieked. And besides, that gate is a clear violation of subsection G, paragraph 4 of the covenants regarding metallic finishes visible from the street. If anything, I was improving community safety by preventing vagrants from using that path as a shortcut. My internal monologue was having a field day. Vagrants? The only vagrants who use that path are squirrels and second graders, and most days it's hard to tell the difference. She's building a legal fortress out of pure, unadulterated nonsense. It's almost impressive. Dave leaned over to me. She's going for the I was actually the hero defense. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for her. It didn't. After another 5 minutes of her increasingly frantic justifications, Officer Miller finally shut his notepad. He walked back over to us, his face set in a grim mask. Okay, he began, letting out another one of his signature sighs. She's sticking to her story. Claims the planters were delivered to the wrong spot by mistake, and she was just storing them there temporarily to keep them safe. Did you ask her if her storage method usually involves a laminated, passive-aggressive notice of closure? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. He chose to ignore that. Look, here's what's going to happen. She's getting a citation for creating a public nuisance and a very, very stern warning about obstruction of a public passage. The D.A. quote, S office could, in theory, press criminal charges for reckless endangerment, but... He shrugged. They probably won't. It's a he said, she said involving potted plants. They have bigger fish to fry. So she gets away with it? Principal Thompson asked, aghast. Not necessarily, Miller said, looking directly at me. The best advice I can give you is to document everything. Every email, every interaction, every time she so much as glares at that gate. Create a paper trail a mile long. That's the only language people like her understand. He handed a card to Principal Thompson. That's the report number. The citation is public record. Use it. With a final nod, he got back in his cruiser and drove away, leaving the three of us in the quiet aftermath. The battle was over, but the war felt depressingly bureaucratic. Then, something shifted. Principal Thompson, who I had previously pegged as a man whose spine was made of overcooked pasta, turned to me. His face, which had been a mask of fear all morning, was now set with a new, unfamiliar resolve. He's right, Thompson said, his voice surprisingly firm. I was a fool to think I could reason with her. I've been letting her bully this school for years because I was afraid of the paperwork, afraid of the conflict. He looked at me, his eyes full of a desperate kind of respect. But you didn't hesitate. You handled that. The district will move slowly, the lawyers will take forever. But the parents won't. Can you help me, Alex? This was it, the official call to arms, the moment I had to decide whether to retreat back to the safety of my home office or lean into the madness. I thought of Lily's smiling face, of Brenda's smug, laminated note. The choice was obvious. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of a new, ridiculous responsibility settle upon them. "Mr. Thompson," I said, a slow, determined smile spreading across my face. "She used laminated signage to endanger the lives of small children. This is no longer a simple disagreement. This is an affront to decent, unlaminated society everywhere." I paused for dramatic effect. "Let's go to war." The war room was a sticky table in the corner of a Starbucks that afternoon. The air smelled of burnt coffee and ambition. My newly formed Parental Action Committee for Sensible Egress, or PAXI, was having its first official meeting. The attendees were myself, serving as the self-appointed commander-in-chief, Dave Chen, my newly promoted chief of propaganda, a dad named Kevin, a quiet but intense paralegal who I'd met at a school fundraiser, and Tom, the burly guy who'd helped move the gate, who was now our designated head of physical operations. I had my laptop open to a fresh PowerPoint slide. Old habits die hard. "All right, gentlemen, welcome," I began, tapping a pen on the table. "Brenda has a long and storied history of weaponizing bureaucracy. She lives and breathes bylaws, addendums, and citations. We are not going to beat her by being angry. We are going to beat her by being better at her own game. We're going to weaponize competence." Dave took a long sip of his Frappuccino. "Are those actual project management terms, or are you just making this up as you go?" "They are now," I said. Phase 1 was rapid response. I think we can all agree we aced that. Miguel is a national treasure. Phase 2 is fortification and documentation. We need to build an unimpeachable case and make sure this can never, ever happen again. I clicked to the next slide, which had a simple 4-point action plan. "Kevin," I said, turning to the paralegal, "you're on legal and bureaucratic. I need you to dig up everything. City fire codes, state education safety mandates, the original property plans for the school when it was built. I want a dossier so thick and so legally airtight that if Brenda even looks at it, she'll get a paper cut of pure, unassailable fact." Kevin nodded, a slow, serious smile on his face. "I can do that. I've been waiting for a reason to use my Westlaw subscription for something fun." "Excellent. Dave," I continued, "you're on public relations, hearts and minds. Brenda is trying to control the narrative, painting herself as a victim and a beautification expert. We need to reclaim it. I want a simple, clear, one-page infographic. Posted on the school's parent portal. Here's what happened. Here's why this gate is critically important, with a little fire marshal logo and everything. Here's what we're doing about it. Make it clean, professional, and devastating." Dave cracked his knuckles. "I can make something so visually appealing and easy to understand that it will haunt her dreams." "Perfect. Tom," I said, turning to the big guy. "You're on physical fortification. I'm calling Miguel back. We're not just clearing the area, we're making it permanently unblockable. I'm thinking steel bollards, the big, yellow, immovable kind you see outside of government buildings. We install them on school property on either side of the gate path. She can't move them. She can't tow them. She can't do a damn thing about them. We are Brenda-proofing the perimeter." Tom grinned. "I like the sound of Brenda-proofing." "And finally," I said, looking at all of them, "documentation. This is everyone's job. From this moment forward, we document every single interaction with Brenda. Every email, every nasty look, every time she lets her dog poop on your lawn and forgets a bag. I'm setting up a shared Google Drive. We will build a library of her transgressions. Officer Miller gave us the key. A paper trail." We spent the next hour hashing out the details, the energy in our little corner of the coffee shop buzzing with the thrill of righteous purpose. For the first time, the opposition to Brenda wasn't just scattered grumbling at mailboxes. It was organized, It had a plan. It had a PowerPoint presentation. She had no idea what was coming. Saturday morning arrived with the dulcet tones of a jackhammer. Miguel and his crew were on site by 8 a.m. sharp, ready to execute the physical fortification phase of our plan. I stood on the sidewalk, sipping a hot coffee, the crisp morning air filled with the glorious, deafening sounds of progress. It was the most beautiful noise I had ever heard. "You know," Miguel shouted over the din as his guys operated the jackhammer, breaking up the ground for the bollard footings. "For a little extra, I can paint these a nice, bright, don't even think about it, flame orange." "Tempting, Miguel, so tempting," I yelled back. "But let's stick to standard safety yellow. We need to look like the good, responsible guys here. The moral high ground is key." He just grinned and gave me a thumbs up. It took approximately 7 minutes for Brenda to emerge. She didn't walk out of her house. She erupted. She was wearing a silk robe, and her hair was in a state of disarray, but her eyes were blazing with the fire of 1,000 suns. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, marching across her perfectly manicured lawn to the property line. "It is 8 o'clock on a Saturday. You are violating at least a dozen noise ordinances. This is unapproved construction." I took a calm, deliberate sip of my coffee. "Morning, Brenda. Lovely day for some safety upgrades, isn't it?" "I'm calling the police!" she screamed. "I'm calling my lawyer! I'm calling the city inspector!" "Feel free," I said, holding up a clear plastic sleeve. "We're just installing some city-mandated safety equipment on official school property. Principal Thompson signed off on it himself. We've got the work permit right here." I gave the sleeve a little shake. The paralegal, Kevin, had thought of everything. "It's the one laminated in bulletproof plastic, just in case of, sudden bouts of irrational rage. Want to see it?" The look on her face was a spectacular mixture of fury and impotence. She was a creature of rules and regulations, and right now, the rules were not on her side. She sputtered for a moment, unable to form a coherent sentence, before whirling around and storming back into her house. The slam of her front door was almost as loud as the jackhammer. I thought that was the end of it for the day. I was wrong. Brenda didn't confront you head-on when she was losing. She retreated, regrouped, and attacked from the bureaucratic shadows. On Monday afternoon, I found it waiting in my mailbox. A crisp, cream-colored envelope with the Oak Reserve HOA logo embossed in the corner. Inside was an official letter printed on heavy cardstock. Official notice of violation and fine assessment. Dear Mr. Miller, please be advised that you have been found in violation of the Oak Reserve covenants and bylaws on Saturday, August 2nd. Violation 1, Bylaw 31. F. Unauthorized supervision of a contractor during non-standard hours, weekends. Fine, $200. Violation 2, Addendum 7. B. Failure to maintain a harmonious neighborhood atmosphere, resulting in acoustic disruption. Fine, $100. Total amount due, $300. Payment is due within 15 business days to avoid further penalties. Sincerely, Brenda Dixon, President. I stared at the letter for a full minute. Then I started to laugh. A loud, unrestrained, can't-breathe kind of laugh. She had fined me. Not for the construction itself, she knew she couldn't. She had fined me for supervising it, for my vibe, for failing to maintain a harmonious neighborhood atmosphere. It was the most beautifully absurd thing I had ever read. I took a picture of the letter and sent it to the Paxi group chat. Gentlemen, we have received a response from the opposing party. She's fining me for my vibe. This is amazing. Dave's reply was instantaneous. Frame it. Kevin's was more practical. This is unenforceable and clear retaliation. Add it to the dossier. Tom's was my favorite. LOL. The letter was a mistake on her part, a huge one. It wasn't just an attack on me anymore. It was proof that she was using the HOA as her own personal weapon to punish anyone who defied her. And now, we had it in writing. While Brenda was busy inventing new and exciting ways to find me, Dave was hard at work on Phase 2 of our plan. On Tuesday morning, the infographic went live. He'd posted it to the school's official parent portal, the one everyone had to log into for lunch menus and report cards. It was a masterpiece of clean design and devastating simplicity. The title was calm and factual. An update on the North Gate incident. Below it were 3 sections. The first, What Happened, had a simple timeline. Friday, 8:15 a.m., scheduled fire drill begins. Friday, 8:16 a.m., north emergency exit found to be deliberately obstructed. Friday, 8:28 a.m., obstruction cleared by concerned parents and community partners. It featured a tasteful but clear photo of the planters blocking the gate. The second section, Why This Gate is Important, featured a simple map of the school, showing that the gate was the primary escape route for 4 classrooms, including 2 kindergarten rooms. Next to it was a direct quote from the State Fire Code about required emergency egress points, with the official seal of the State Fire Marshal prominently displayed. The final section, What We're Doing, was the kicker. It showed a photo of the brand new, bright yellow bollards. The caption read, "To ensure this can never happen again, permanent safety bollards have been installed on school property, fully funded by parent donations." There was no mention of Brenda by name. No angry rhetoric. It didn't need it. The facts, laid out so cleanly, were more damning than any accusation. It painted a picture of a dangerous situation created by an unnamed entity and solved by a proactive, responsible parent community. The effect was immediate and seismic. The parent portal's message board, normally a sleepy place for questions about lost lunchboxes, exploded. "This is horrifying! Thank you to the parents who handled this. Who would do such a thing? My son is in Mrs. Davison's class. I can't thank you enough for installing those bollards." Principal Thompson called me that afternoon. "Alex," he said, and for the first time, I heard genuine excitement in his voice. "My inbox is flooded. Dozens of emails. All of them supportive. The superintendent called me. He saw the infographic. He said, 'Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.' He's fast-tracking a district-level review of all HOA agreements." Brenda had lost control of the narrative. Completely. The shift in the neighborhood was palpable. Over the next few days, my daily dog walks became public forums. Neighbors who used to just give me a polite, distant nod were now stopping me, their voices low and conspiratorial. "Hey, Alex," said Carol from 2 streets over, while pretending to inspect her rose bushes. "Good work with that gate situation. Just so you know, Brenda tried to fine me last month because my garden gnome was, and I quote, inconsistent with the neighborhood's rustic modern aesthetic. A day later, it was Mr. Henderson from the corner house. She sent me a violation because my welcome mat was excessively welcoming and might encourage unsolicited foot traffic. My welcome mat." It turned out that for years, everyone had been suffering under Brenda's reign in quiet, isolated frustration. They thought they were the only ones. Our little Paxi team, with our bollards and our infographic, had inadvertently created a resistance movement. We had shown them they weren't alone, and the dossier in our shared Google Drive was getting thicker by the hour. Brenda had spent years making enemies. She just didn't realize they were all about to start talking to each other. The quarterly HOA meeting was usually a sad, sparsely attended affair held in the community clubhouse, a building that smelled faintly of chlorine and regret. Maybe 10 people would show up, listen to Brenda drone on about lawn care for an hour, and then slink back home. Tonight was different. The room was packed. Every single one of the flimsy folding chairs was taken. People were standing along the back wall. I saw Carol of the illicit garden gnome. I saw Mr. Henderson of the overly welcoming welcome mat. I saw dozens of other faces, all drawn here by the scent of blood in the water. Dave, Kevin, and Tom were with me, near the front, a silent phalanx of suburban dads ready for battle. Brenda stood at the podium at the front of the room. She was dressed in a severe navy blue pantsuit, the kind of outfit that screams, "I am in charge here." She surveyed the unexpectedly large crowd with a look of smug satisfaction, completely misreading the room. She probably thought they were all there to support her. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice echoing slightly in the crowded room. "It's so wonderful to see such a strong community turnout. We have a few items on the agenda tonight, starting with a review of the new regulations on holiday lighting displays, and then we need to address a few recent compliance issues and fines." She glanced in my direction, a tiny, triumphant smirk on her lips. This was my cue. I stood up. "Brenda, excuse me," I said, my voice calm but loud enough to command the room's attention. "Before we discuss the existential threat of taupe-colored mailboxes, a group of us have a motion to add an urgent item to the agenda." Every head turned toward me. Brenda's smirk vanished, replaced by a confused frown. "The agenda is set, Mr. Miller. That's not how this works. According to bylaw 4.d, Kevin, the paralegal, chimed in from his seat, his voice dry and precise. Any homeowner can move to amend the agenda with a simple majority vote from the members present. A murmur went through the room. Brenda looked like she'd been slapped. "The item we'd like to add," I continued, walking toward the front of the room, "is this: a vote of no confidence in the current HOA president." The room erupted. It wasn't angry shouting. It was a wave of excited, shocked chatter. Brenda's face went from confused to pale to a dangerous shade of crimson. "This is an ambush. This is completely out of order," she stammered. "Is it, Brenda?" I asked, pulling a USB stick from my pocket. "Or is it just accountability?" I walked past her to the table, where a laptop was connected to an old projector aimed at a pull-down screen. "I believe you'll find this is very much in order." I plugged in the drive. A moment later, an image filled the screen. It was a crisp, high-resolution photo of the 3 concrete planters pushed up against the school's emergency gate. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I clicked to the next slide, a close-up of the laminated note. "This area is temporarily closed for landscape beautification." More murmurs. Next slide. A scanned copy of Officer Miller's official police citation for public nuisance, with Brenda's name clearly visible. The report number was highlighted. Next slide. The letter she sent me, fining me $300 for my vibe. And then came the finale. A long, scrolling list. On one side was a homeowner's name, on the other, the reason for their fine. Carol Peters, inconsistent garden gnome, $50. Frank Henderson, excessively welcoming. Welcome Matt, $25. The Chen family, tonally inconsistent pink bicycle, $75. The Gupta family, unauthorized wind chimes, $100 per day. It went on, a monument to her petty tyranny, all compiled from the secret survey David sent out. I turned to face the crowd. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "For years," I began, "the Oak Reserve HOA has been run not to serve the community, but to serve the ego of one person. An HOA is supposed to maintain community standards, not invent them on the fly to settle personal vendettas." I gestured to the screen. An HOA is supposed to protect property values, not endanger the lives of our children over a hydrangea. I took a breath, letting the words sink in. We pay our dues for services, for landscaping, for pool maintenance. We do not pay our dues to fund a one-woman reign of beige-tinted terror. This isn't about aesthetics anymore. This has never been about aesthetics. It's about a pattern of harassment, intimidation, and abuse of power. And it ends tonight. I looked from face to face in the crowd, seeing nods of agreement everywhere. This, I said, my voice rising with passion, is about accountability. It's about taking our neighborhood back. It's about ensuring that the person in charge is a reasonable public servant, not a petty dictator who thinks a laminated note gives them the right to block a fire exit. I finished. For a moment, there was dead silence. Then, someone in the back started clapping. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire room, save for Brenda, was giving a standing ovation. Kevin stood up. I formally make the motion for a vote of no confidence in Brenda Dixon as HOA president. I second it, shouted Carol of the Garden Gnome. The vote was a formality. It was a landslide, a tidal wave. Brenda stood frozen at the podium, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. When the final tally was read, she didn't say a word. She just snatched her binder of bylaws off the podium, shot me a look of pure hatred, and stormed out of the clubhouse. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving a stunned, victorious silence in her wake. Then Dave stood up. Well, he said with a grin, I guess we need a new president. I nominate Alex. I decline, I said immediately, but I nominate Dave. Before he could protest, Tom seconded it. The vote was unanimous. Dave Chen, my laid-back, Frappuccino-loving friend, was the new, deeply reluctant president of the Oak Reserve HOA. His first official act, proposed by me and ratified by cheers, was to take my $300 fine notice, walk to the front of the room, and, with great ceremony, rip it into tiny pieces. A week later, I was waiting for Lily after school. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the playground. Life was back to normal, but it was a new, better kind of normal. I was standing near the north gate, our gate. Its sturdy yellow bollards stood like faithful sentinels, a permanent, silent testament to our little suburban coup. Dave, looking stressed but happy, came over. He was holding a sheaf of papers. You will not believe the paperwork involved in changing the authorized signature on the HOA's bank account, he sighed. The burdens of leadership, my friend, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. Just then, the dismissal bell rang. Lily came running out, her backpack bouncing. She spotted me and her face lit up. She ran right to the north gate, which a teacher had propped open. Daddy, Daddy, she called out, her voice full of excitement. Can we go home through the special gate today? I looked at Dave, who just shrugged and smiled. I looked at the gate, at the clear, safe path it provided. You know what, sweetie? I said, my own smile spreading wide. I think we can. As I walked home with my daughter, her small hand in mine, I thought about the whirlwind of the past few weeks. I had accidentally led a suburban rebellion, overthrown a petty tyrant, installed my best friend as the new leader, and somehow made a boring old fire exit the most popular spot on the playground. I'd never put it on my professional resume, but maybe I should. Successfully managed a cross-functional volunteer team to mitigate a hostile stakeholder action, resulting in a 100% regime change and significant improvement in community safety protocols. Yeah, that sounded about right. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Dave. Urgent HOA business. The board is deadlocked. Is Garden Gnome one word or two? Need your input. I sighed and typed my reply. It's 2 words, and for God's sake, man, no laminating. I put my phone away and squeezed Lily's hand. My work, it seemed, was never done, and I wouldn't have it any other way.